We often say that XRP is the chosen one, but I'm going to be honest with you, I personally think there are many cryptos out there that are extremely solid to buy. But let's be realistic here. The way they've been treating XRP throughout the last couple of years is strange. And strange is putting it very lightly. Take a look at what DAI said a little bit earlier. Hey Grayscale, remember that XRP Trust, which is basically this investment product Grayscale had, where they invest in XRP and you can basically invest in that. So it's basically how institutions could buy XRP beforehand, right? Remember that trust you closed down when the SEC filed their case against Ripple? Well, the SEC just lost, making XRP the only digital asset with legal clarity. I mean, Bitcoin is often considered not a security because the SEC vaguely pointed out, but there's no case or law proving that officially. But the question comes up, so when an XRP spot ETF? Because it seems that all these guys want to fight over an Ethereum spot ETF. And Grayscale, wow, amongst or against all odds, is trying to fight for an Ethereum spot ETF, even though Ethereum has never properly been cleared. And it's an interesting debacle. Why, again, are they also against XRP and products of the sort? I mean, one good thing is that all of a sudden, after a very long while, the mainstream articles are posting about it again. We've said before how a lot of these mainstream articles and even mainstream crypto type of outlets are refusing to post about XRP or Ripple related things. But apparently, Yahoo Finance is also now shouting out that the US judge denied the SEC's attempt to appeal the Ripple ruling. And we've talked before about how big a deal it was, how big a blow it was to the SEC's tactic, and how they made a grave mistake trying to get this judge to further justify her ruling, because now it's more set in stone what she already concluded earlier, that XRP is fine and that these transactions are all very specific, but for the most part, decentralized / not security offerings. A little side note, by the way, Brad Garlinghouse just pointed this out. Incredibly proud of the team at Ripple. Just 4 months after we received our principal approval from the MAS in Singapore, we've now secured the full major payment institution license for digital payment token services over in Singapore, which is nice. There's also some talks right now in the community from David Schwartz here talking about the clawback feature. And there's actually a lot of commotion about this specific feature. RippleX posted, Clawback is a newly proposed feature that adds to the XRP ledger's token asset control capabilities. It is part of the latest Ripple 1.12 release, we've covered it before, and eligible for voting by the validated community. If adopted, the XLS39 clawback feature will enable developers to provide enhanced trust and safety for their issued assets. Validators should review the documentation to understand its functionality and lightweight impact on the XRP ledger, because it's not that deep of an update. Developers may find the optional clawback feature useful when issuing assets in certain geographies. If enabled, clawback allows the issuer to claw back tokens in cases of fraudulent activity or for account recovery purposes when a user loses access to their account. So, people looked at this and thought this means that XRP can all of a sudden be taken back. But the key point is, this is a feature that can be enabled for newly issued tokens. This can be, if you, for example, you're like, hey, I want to create a new token, but I want to make sure it abides by these regulations, etc. There's a feature for that now. That does not mean that XRP all of a sudden can be pulled back. This has nothing to do with XRP. It's something that can now become a potential function on the XRP ledgers. Just let's say, for example, in theory, right, if we're using the public XRP ledger and some company wanted to issue a token for some purpose that's unspecified, but they have to make sure that assets are recoverable in case of fraud. Well, beforehand, it'd be like just go to a different blockchain. Can't do it here. But now it's possible. It does not mean that if they turn it on, it's on for everybody everywhere. It just means for whatever specific little dream ecosystem that they're building on their own that includes nobody else necessarily now has that specific feature. To continue on a little bit, the clawback feature works by enabling a flag for a trust line, which users need to send and receive a given asset with one another. Before purchasing a token, users can check the trust line to understand whether the clawback account level flag is activated, and this complements the freeze feature, a similar account level flag that can affect a trust line. Freeze allows you as an issuer to freeze assets in cases where malicious activity has occurred, an original token asset control feature of the XRP ledger. And trust lines are an object type that enable the XRP ledger to have effective asset control features, which can act as spam control filter and prevent users from sending unsolicited or unwanted tokens to one another. Authorized trust line enable an issuer to determine which accounts may receive or hold an issued asset, and this can be important depending on the project and where the issuer and their end users are located. As I said before, people are not very excited about it. They're saying this is bad, 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 bad. And again, I'd say for the most part, this has to do with people not understanding properly what this is all about. Again, I understand a lot of the concerns. For example, for me, it will be abused by issuers stealing funds, claiming security concerns or other BS, which again can be very true. This can definitely be bad if it were to be everywhere. But in my opinion, if you're creating a sandbox, you're creating an environment where everybody can thrive. In theory, this environment should have all the capabilities, and it should be up to the exact issuer to decide which features they've got on. And again, they're not changeable after the fact, without everybody being part of it, so to speak. At the end of the day, guys, you have to understand, even XRP can be forked if people don't agree with the way it's currently going. They can basically create a second XRP, the whole community, and just go on from there. But they don't because they like the way it's going. Just like how Bitcoin was forked into Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, whatever. Now, the CTO of Ripple, who might actually be Satoshi, I don't know, this is a genius of a man, that's why I'm subscribed to him over on Twitter. The Clawback amendment is now eligible for voting. This allows issuers of new assets specifically created with this feature enabled to claw back a specified quantity of the asset from a holder. So it's bad, but it's really good because now it allows some new companies to build their tokens on this ledger that otherwise might have never done so. So again, would this be good for XRP? If it were to be implemented for XRP specifically, it would be the worst thing ever. I would quit right now. But it's not. It's just a feature that's available in this new environment. My initial reaction was that this was redundant and not necessary. There's really nothing you can do with Clawback that you can't do with Freeze already that issued assets already have, but there's an important difference actually. The primary use case would be assets that represent actual legal obligations. A stablecoin that can be redeemed by its issuer for cash, or for example, and a legal obligation can cease to exist for external reasons, due to a court order, for example. You must have some way to represent this on the ledger. Otherwise, you simply can't have assets that represent legal obligations on your ledger, and that would be a huge loss. So let's say that on the XP ledger, you want to have everything. This needs to be a feature because you can't just have freeze, which again is not enabled for everything. The problem with freeze is that a frozen asset may or may not be a legal obligation of the issuer. It may be frozen because the rightful owner is in dispute. And in that case, it is still a legal obligation of the issuer. But it also may be frozen because a court ordered it to be paid out some other way. And once the payment is made, it's no longer a legal obligation. The problem with only having freeze is that it's not possible for the issuer to ensure the ledger accurately reflects its legal obligations. This weakens accountability and makes audits a lot more complex. That is the primary reason I support the feature. One more detail I should explain is if the community really does not like this feature, it will not go through. It's not Ripple deciding at the end of the day. But one more detail, while it's true that you can't really do anything with Clawback that you can't already do with Freeze, it's just like mostly for accounting purposes, I'd say. In fairness, it's worth analyzing one legitimately objection people could have to this feature. Freeze is all or nothing. Clawback is more surgical. If you think issuers will always use Clawback to replace cases where they would otherwise have used Freeze, it's hard to object to this change. It allows the issuer to be less intrusive. However, an argument can be made that having a surgical tool that minimizes collateral damage makes that tool more likely to be used, which I agree with. To use an analogy, if Russia only had nuclear weapons, they probably wouldn't, go for a little invasion. Yeah, it would be much worse if they did, but they wouldn't likely do it because of that. Freeze is the nuclear option. Clawback enables surgical strikes. Of course, issuers must make the choice to enable clawback before they issue. If you don't want to hold an asset that can be clawed back or frozen, then just don't buy that specific asset, which again, you'll see if you're trying to buy it. And of course, XRP, and this is very important, has no issuer and so can never be clawed back by anybody or be frozen by anybody. So please understand that carefully. The XRP we're talking about here can never be taken back or frozen. Oh, and one last thought. Other blockchains that have stablecoins on them have some version of clawback already. Again, many people are not familiar with how cryptocurrency really works at the basis, but there are so many more rules and parts that most people just don't know. So even if it's not strictly necessary, not having it means everyone who wants to interact with stablecoins on the XP Ledger has to develop different processes and procedures to do so. Because again, they'll find a way, but it's going to be more difficult. This is especially a problem for auditors and other types of institutions that can't just make up new processes and adopt them without high friction. And again, that's because, for the most part, just specific smart contracts might just have it in there, and you just don't really know about it. It's not like the pitch you have with a layer 1, where it's like, oh, this is this and that feature, because you can build it inside of a smart contract, for example. And that's the thing about the XRP Ledger. These guys try very hard to be very open and transparent with everything, which to some extent actually, I'd say, hurts, because people misconstrue the message. It's similar to Ripple selling that XRP or doing things with the XRP. It's not different than most other blockchains. It's not different than most others and the way they do it. But they're just more open about it. They're just more forward. Don't you think Cardano, Ethereum, whatever you can pick here, has definitely spent a lot of money on frivolous things or things you can't fully see into that you might have not agreed with or that you think was stupid? And the reason I'm saying Cardano or Ethereum is because any crypto project, there's always a foundation above it or around it. And usually they're the ones who decide certain things about or for the project. Again, you might definitely say those entities are centralized entities because they're a company formation, etc. And they've got funds which they are able to allocate. Before I go on too much of a tangent, the point being, the feature here, in my opinion, is something that is necessary. I actually think more and more features, if they're not very intrusive, are only better because it allows for more functionality and thus for more different issuers to join your program, to join your environment, to get into your ecosystem. If you're very restrictive, yeah, most people would think, hey, that's good because they can't do this or that to my assets. Well, they still can't. Nothing is changing for XRP inherently. Just new issuers that are thinking of building something have another option. So the only thing I always look at is what is the effect on the XP Ledger? How intrusive is it for all our transactions? And what are the negative sides for the XP Ledger? In this case here, they're quite minimal. So I don't think there's going to be too much of an issue for getting this one voted in. But on that note, we'll see shortly. The same thing applies to the AMM, right? The automated market makers we talked about before. You'll see soon enough exactly who is for and who is against, and I trust the ones who decide that they know best for what's good for the XP Ledger, because like I always say, if you don't know enough about it, let the people who know about it decide. At the end of the day, I think they want what's best for XP Ledger as well. And for XRP and XP price, whatever. So yeah, that's about it for this little quick update. A couple of different random things were discussed, but this is all important for you guys to understand. So yeah, that's about it. And make sure you've pressed that like button if you enjoyed the video. And soon enough, I'm rolling out a couple of educational parts and cool things. So stick around for that. And again, just make sure you join the Discord and start talking in there to always keep yourself informed with the newest things before I even upload a video. Yeah, that's about it.